Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to LCM TV. I'm your host, Jason Little, and today I'm talking with Global Change Agent and the latest recipient of our storytelling badge, Sarika Kharbanda. Welcome.
Yay! Hey, Jason. Thank you.
You're welcome. So just a little bit of context about the storytelling badge. So we have a digital credential program. We don't do traditional certifications. So we have our learning objectives are knowledge-based and application-based. So our digital credential system is basically, great, you've gone to a course, you've acquired some knowledge. Now let's figure out how to apply that stuff. So as people go on missions and they try the ideas and things, they can earn different types of digital credentials to really showcase their skills and experience. So what we're going to talk about today is an awesome story that Sarika has. And I guess I'll get you started with, give us a little bit of context about this situation that you found yourself in.
Sure. It's been many years, so yeah, let me start all the way from many years ago. So this has been, I would say, a financial services organization, a new organization for me to join, new colleagues, new culture, new language, pretty much the newness, I think, was a lot of it. And interestingly, I was just given a set of portfolio of the most critical products of this organization and thrown into my lap and said, okay, go figure what's the best or what's the worst that could happen, right? You just have to go figure. So I would just leave that for the moment as part of the context. I would add to that some cultural dynamics, I would say. People were, of course, not acquainted with a new style of working. My style of working has been very transparent, open, and very collaborative. So I think culturally there were clashes amongst the cultures I was working, but they were also new to my culture. So that's their side of the story. And I would say another part of the context or dynamic would be everything was failing for all the critical products there. Nothing was working. And again, failure from the perspective of the portfolio that was given to me by the business owners. So that was more or less the context there.
Okay. And just as a reminder, you weren't brought in as a change agent, right?
No.
So this was the portfolio that you owned and you were responsible for. Okay. Because I know people know you as a change agent. So it wasn't in that type of context. It was, yeah.
Yes.
In the soup with everybody else.
Yes. So I was, and I'll elaborate a bit on that. So I was brought in as a portfolio manager for this, managing this set of critical products for the financial institution. And I was supposed to lead this team globally across and deliver these products into, let's say it was more or less a maintenance portfolio. So I had to keep the business as usual happening so that we don't come in the newspaper soon. And the other part of it was to, do as many changes as are needed by business, by the market, by compliances, and whatever it takes to get this work done.
Okay. All right. Cool. So getting into some of the perspective mapping and insights gathering that you did. So tell us about the approach that you used for that situation.
So it was interesting when I started off there. I was like, how tough could it be? But given that I kept knowing these amazing challenges that kept coming my way, and I didn't know all of them to start with. I did know the cultural pieces, etc. But I really didn't know that it was meant to be a failing project or set of products, right? And when thrown into it, of course, knowing me, I would say people would say, okay, she's just going to fly with things and she's going to do things. But again, I don't have a magic wand and I can't do it alone. So what I started to do was first try and see if I can have one-on-one connects with people who've been there, done that, and can give me as many perspectives. I would say even that brought interesting challenges, Jason, because cultural dynamics didn't turn out very well. Why is this person hired from that end of the world to do something in this part of the world? it's a pushback already. But I was like, hey, I'm just trying to find out more, right? So of course, I took as much as I got from the one-on-one connects, a couple of retrospectives, because retrospectives give us a lot of data, some lessons learned that had been documented in the past, a lot of retrospectives that I could facilitate in the best possible healthy environment, I would say, because it wasn't very healthy when I got in. I think it was a little abusive to start with. And I was like, okay, how am I going to fit in with all the pushback and resistance, so-called, that you keep getting? But yeah, went with the flow, did not push back. I wanted as many insights as I could gather. So that was another approach I took by facilitating retrospectives. Another approach I would say was having informal coffee conversations, lunches, as much informal stuff that you can start to do. But this was also global. It was not just locally for me. So I did have to fly in and out of a couple places, but they were like really close. So not too far. So that was still relatively okay. And I wouldn't say video conferencing was the in thing then. So I did have those constraints. So flying was like a thing to be done then. So yes, had to do that. I would add to this one key technique that we today, as I know today, it's called force field analysis and stuff. I obviously didn't know the tech jargon around it then, but I believe what I did then was aligned to what we today call as a mix of perspective map and force field analysis. Now, it was important for me to bring people together and also in separate silos, capture as many perspectives as I could across the whole value stream. And just to highlight a couple people or teams involved in the value stream. So I had people in IT, people in business, people as customers or end customers and vendors, upstream, downstream, both. And then, of course, I had other departments or functions in the organization that I had to collaborate with, which included HR, contracting, etc. So getting perspectives from all of these different stakeholders for these products. And yeah, more, I'm probably even missing out a couple. It's been many years, but yes, I would say a number of stakeholders there. Working through facilitation as my stance as a portfolio manager, as I was called then, and bringing out different perspectives from all different stakeholders and see what's common, what's different, why are people thinking the way they are, how can we enable the constraints that people are, facing. But yeah, that was more or less how I captured the insights.
And what was, I guess, different from maybe what the people would have been expecting? So was the idea of, because you did mention in the story, and there's a write-up with the links below that you can see, there was a lot of kind of this going on. The IT is like, oh, it's those business people that, they don't know how to prioritize. They don't know how to do this and that. And then the business is pointing back the other side saying, oh, IT always misses their deadlines. And kind of, you could walk into any organization in the world and they would have the exact same problem. So what was, coming in and gathering insights and talking to people to explore, was that something that was met with go away outsider? Was it something that was different from how they would normally, the people at the top do the thinking and they decide we're going to move in this direction and we do it, and your approach was more co-creative and collaborative? So what was what kind of friction or response did that create that was different?
Yeah, I would probably say that, maybe that should come a little later in my story. But when I started at this point to gather insights, of course, I was hit with a lot of resistance, So what were they expecting? I would say was, somebody will shoot an email and just, give us a list of data that's needed and check. They will just give that back. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted to hear from people. I wanted to connect with people. Also, because I was new to the organization and the teams themselves and the products, I just wanted to know people better and make my own judgments about the dynamics of how the teams were working, etc., and the perspectives that I was getting from, let's say, biased stakeholders, because I did know about the products before, starting on these products, but then that's a bias I get, right? And I think I've been on my own transformation journey long enough, and I still am. You can't just be off it. So I knew I didn't want to get biased, and I wanted to build my own perspective after hearing everybody else, and then decide how to move forward. So I would say there was a point where we reached in this gathering insights approach that people were like, this is weird. She's actually listening to us. It doesn't make sense. Why is she listening? Why does she care? Because for them, like you rightly said in the story I've already highlighted, IT and business didn't care about each other. And they'd been working for more than 4 years. And here I am coming in today and I'm like, hey, we should work together. They were like, why do you care? You're an outsider anyway, so why? It started with that, but here's the drop. Here's what happened. When I started bringing people together for the first retrospective to gather insights, I actually showed my own vulnerability. I started with that. I actually said, guess what? I can't make this happen alone. So if we have to make this successful by any ways and means, I need your help. And I think that was a culture shock, because very individualistic cultures now coming in to work with someone like myself and me working with someone like them and saying, I want us to collaborate. Otherwise, we're not going to make this successful. We're probably going to be in the papers tomorrow. And I was like, forget about the budget, forget about everything else. That's my problem. Let's just fix what we have here and how can we succeed together. So there were a couple people who were my allies, but I didn't have enough and I needed them to start influencing. And I had to, kind of nudge in the right direction for people to then take that step and say, okay, she's kind of starting to make sense. She wants our help. There must be something, right? And it's not that people didn't want this to happen. They had a common goal. They did want to make this a success. It's just that they didn't get along with each other, but they had nothing against the work that they were doing. So again, it brings the whole common vision in line. I did, during the perspective mapping and insights gathering approach or time frame, I would say, did share with them that, hey, everybody looks like wants to make it happen. I just think we've not gotten together to make it happen in the right way. And it's nobody's fault. In fact, even that statement was kind of a ball drop. They were like, oh, it's nobody's fault. It is somebody's fault, right? It has to be, because you have to have someone to blame. And they were wondering, she's not blaming us. And, it was pin drop silence at some point when I had everyone on an audio call also, or in person, and people were definitely feeling weird, I would say. But, as we say, when we get uncomfortable, that's where the learning starts. I think that's where people started to open up and say, let's try this. And that's all I needed. Honestly, that try came from a couple of people who I hoped would say, and them saying that at the position and seniority that they were, whether it's in business or IT or HR or procurement, didn't matter. It's just that those people needed to start rolling the ball forward for people to start saying, oh, maybe we can trust each other in business and IT. Maybe we're not as bad in terms of finding time for each other to make the project successful. Maybe it's not just that we don't understand each other's challenges. We probably just haven't taken the time out to find each other's challenges. And those similarities and differences that I was trying to show them through this whole approach of perspective mapping started then coming out through meaningful conversations, which is exactly what I was trying to bring out.
And how long did that take? How long did it take to start to chip away at those walls to get people to start having more meaningful dialogue?
You're not going to believe this, Jason, but this overall project was a 2.5-month project.
Wow.
So honestly, I had more challenges than anyone ever knew. I was like, can I do this overnight, please? Because this has to work from tomorrow. And knowing the cultures and the place that I was working in at that time, you do not call each other during vacation time or holiday time. You don't work then. So it was very different. And I knew the maximum holidays were coming in this coming month. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make this happen? I had no luxury of time to, do trust building activities or team building activities. And I was like, okay. And that's where the whole vulnerability drop thing happened. I was like, let's try and do something. So how much time did I have and how much time it took? I would say a month and a half, or maybe less than a month, I would say, for people to break out of silos. But it was a daily, hourly effort that I was putting in place, because I strongly believed actions have to speak more than words. If I've committed something, I'm just going to make it happen. I'm going to move everything that's needed to make it happen. I needed to secure, of course, the traditional way. You need to secure leadership intervention. You need to secure your leadership, make sure they're going to give you the budget and everything else and a free hand. I had to do all that stuff in a very traditional approach to make sure I get backed when I need that. And if I have to tell people, across the organization, globally somewhere, to make things happen, then yeah, maybe that should happen. I'm not saying it was easy, but it was interesting. It was interesting.
And where are they today?
I think they're at a good point today. I've been connected just to see how things have been flowing for them. They are still doing daily syncs and connects. They evolved from where they were. So they are still doing daily syncs and connects. They have figured out approaches of how they want to keep each other accountable. They've evolved their approaches from where they were to where they are today. They are doing monthly retrospectives, or reflect and learns, as they call it, because we never used the whole retrospective and other tech words, I would say, because we didn't want to make it a jargon approach thing. So yeah, they're doing monthly reflect and learns. The good thing I like about them is, and that's one of my favorite things that they're doing today, they use email as an exception. So it's really nice to hear that you don't use emails anymore for approvals and for, hey, I'm going to hold you to what you just signed off on, right? You remember the traditional approaches that always happen in any organization. And they're like, oh, we use emails now as an exception unless we really need it from a compliance point of view. We don't, which is really nice to hear that they're still doing a lot of what I suggested then, because I didn't ask for anything. I had just suggested a couple of things. And they're still doing that. And to sum all of that up, they start their new initiatives today using canvases and conversations around that canvas. Of course, they start with the template. And as I see, that's the correct approach. Start with the template, but customize it to what makes sense to you through conversations that will continuously evolve. Because that's not, the canvas is less important than the conversation that you have. So yeah, that's where they are today.
Very cool. So what advice would you give to people who are in a similar situation? So whether it's a change agent, project manager, program manager, because I think there's always a temptation when we see that kind of dynamic. It's because the framework the delivery framework we're using doesn't work. So now we're going to get rid of Kanban and we're going to use Scrum, or we're going to get rid of Disciplined Agile, we're going to use SAFe, or vice versa, or whatever. There's the temptation to say, hey, let's bring in a new tool to fix this dynamic. So what advice would you give to people who are in a similar situation you found yourself in?
Well, there would be no one advice to start with, and again, no silver bullets. But here's, a couple things that I would say. Most importantly, I think you as a change agent, which I wasn't at that time, but I figured I was playing that role. I think you need to choose your stances correctly. It's really important. And secondly, with that stance, I would say, don't push against the organization, go with the flow. It's really important to evolve your stance with the flow. Another advice I would say is it's never about you. Because we as change agents start to make it about us, it's never about us. It's always about anything but yourself. So that's another thing. And like you correctly just said already, it's not about the framework. So honestly, in my whole story, we've not used any framework. We've not used any specific tools. We didn't even use the word change. We didn't use the word agile. We've just not used any of these. I would say I call them tech jargons for a reason, because I don't see the need of the words, but as soon as people start seeing the value, your I don't know, 90% of the job is done, and people will move forward because they will see value and, they'll just take it along. So I would say a piece of advice there would be to not try and use too much of jargon. And maybe last but not the least, too many pieces of advice now that I remember. Experience and learning from making mistakes. I would say let people evolve their approach and be there for them, because sometimes I think just being there, I know I didn't highlight a lot of that in my story, but sometimes just being there was more important for people than to tell or, even co-create something. So just be there, and last but not the least, be congruent with whatever you're doing.
Awesome. That's great advice. Yeah, I can see that it's a very genuine approach, just built on curiosity. It's not, I want to fix these people, or I want to do this, or I want to bring in my way of doing things. It's just a genuine, hey, let's get together and talk about what's going on and figure out a way forward, which I think is great. So any last insights before we wrap up, or anything that popped into your head as we were chatting about this?
I think, I just started enjoying the whole dance with change that I was having then. So as I kept talking about the story with you, I think even before this conversation that we started, it's just that it's always good to dance with change. And we just need to make sure each of us has good space there to feel safe, and have a good dance together. So that's pretty much what I'd like to leave this conversation with.
Awesome. Great. Thanks very much. Congratulations on your storytelling badge.
Excited about it. Yay. Thank you.
Excellent.